Welcome back, everybody. Here we are once again in sunny Glendale, California. John, take off your sunglasses. So rude.
I can't see without my glasses.
Are those prescription sunglasses?
Yes.
Take off the sunglasses. Just do me a favor.
No, I can't see.
Are you serious?
Yeah, that's their prescription. I can't see.
You didn't bring your regular glasses?
No, I didn't know this was going to be like a whole optometry session.
Okay, fine. Leave them on. What movie are we talking about today?
Stargate, starring James Spader and noted pedophile Roland Emmerich.
Directed by a convicted child molester, Roland Emmerich. Actually, I think it would be alleged child molester, Roland Emmerich, and Kurt Russell, who's an all-around great dude.
Who is not alleged.
You think that he had molested someone?
Goldie Hawn.
Okay, so that's just a joke. That's just our idea of a joke. That's what you call a California joke. The truth is that we're talking about another movie. Which movie is it?
What are we doing? Liberty Valance?
Yes.
We're doing The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
We're doing The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance today. Oh yeah, look, the wave on my recorder is so much better if I'm over here. This is going to be a lot better this time. We're doing The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. We had the opportunity for the first time in the history of the Public Figures podcast to actually view a movie together. Not only did we view a movie together, we also viewed it in 35 millimeter. Not only was it in 35 millimeter, but it was at the world famous New Beverly in, where is it? What location? Kosher Canyon?
Well, I mean, it's in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, California. Quentin Tarantino's pristine rep theater. I had a great time. I was very surprised. I'd never seen this film before. John Ford film. 1962. I did a little bit of research on the film and sort of its production, a lot of interesting things. But I think the first thing we need to do is talk about what the film is about. So why don't you go ahead, since you're the Western expert.
Jimmy Stewart plays a lawyer, a sort of a very civilized gentleman who goes west to start lawyering in the Old West. I'm not sure where. When you did your research, did you find out where they are? Is it Oklahoma?
It specifically says an unnamed state.
Okay, so it's some unnamed Western state in the Old West, and sort of the clash of civilized humanity meets
life on the range.
Yeah, exactly. The rough and tumble world of the Old West. And Jimmy Stewart gets a big wake-up call when he comes to town and he meets the
swinging dick.
the hard living Western folks.
But you know what's ironic actually is that Jimmy Stewart was famously a bomber pilot in World War II. And John Wayne was a draft dodger. Mm-hmm. So although John Wayne is thought to be sort of like the embodiment of American masculinity and machismo, when it comes down to actually doing stuff, he didn't do shit. Jimmy Stewart was actually the more manly dude.
Jimmy Stewart in this movie, he's a good actor, and he's very good at playing this particular role of sort of the stuttering, hot-headed, civilized wimp. Mm-hmm. But he's good at playing sort of more hardened characters, like in Winchester 73, like all the movies he made with Anthony Mann, like Winchester 73, Man from Laramie, Naked Spur. Those are all great Westerns, like sort of, I like to, think of them as sort of more kind of noirish Westerns. They're very dark. But yeah, here he's not playing that. He's definitely playing the wimp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was more of an indictment of John Wayne, really.
Yeah, sticking it to John Wayne.
Well, this is not just something that I think, this is something that he thought. He was actually, this is a big, like problem for him. Like later in life, he felt guilt that he never really was that guy, and that he was never able to serve. He actually did try to join the Naval Academy, but his grades were too low. I guess he was just some sort of imbecile.
Yeah, there's a joke that Peter Bogdanovich, or not a joke, it's a story that Peter Bogdanovich tells about. He used to interview John Ford late in John Ford's life, and I guess one day he went over to visit John Ford, and John Ford was lying in bed, and he's a little bit hard of hearing, and Peter Bogdanovich was like, "Oh, it was Duke's birthday the other day. I got him a present. I bought him a book." And John Ford's like, "What?" It's like, I bought him a book. I bought John Wayne a book. And then John Ford was like, "He already has a book," implying that he has one. John Wayne has one book.
Yeah. That is kind of a joke.
I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, it's like...
But it was John Ford's joke, not Peter Bogdanovich's joke.
It's a story about John Ford's joke. Okay, so... Yeah, we're going to be dipping in and out of like the real life stuff. Apparently John Ford was very cruel to John Wayne throughout the production of this film also.
I think like if you read a little bit about a lot of those John Ford Westerns, there's a lot of pranking and cruelty going on throughout his whole career, not only between John Ford and John Wayne, but like between like Ward Bond and John Wayne, and it's like all the different. He was because he had like a pretty. He had a stable of actors, that kind of come and go, but it was like a very kind of like these were like the John Ford actors. Like you'd see them reappear in his films over and over again, and yeah, they were always like busting each other's balls pretty heavy.
Well, he like notably Jimmy Stewart. Seemed to escape John Ford's ire for most of the time. That was something that I noted in.
But I think like this might be the only movie Jimmy Stewart made with John Ford. Mm-hmm. I don't think he wasn't a John Ford regular.
He didn't escape it. Like towards the end, John Ford was shitty to him as well, and that was something that. I think it was Lee Marvin who was just like, "Oh, you're part of the club now, We're part of the club now." That's my Lee Marvin. So anyways, what the hell's going on? We got fucking John Wayne playing a hardened rancher who's got a pretty girl played by Nellie. Is her name Nellie? Nellie? Tally? I'm gonna need the computer.
Vera Miles. I can't remember what her name is.
I think it's like Helly, I believe. They're Swedes. Interesting to sort of make it Swedish people, because that largely was like Northern Europeans who kind of settled a lot of that land, and Germans as well. So having them like Swedish immigrants, I thought was kind of interesting. There's also a lot of there's a lot of emphasis on like and you said that this is something that tends to be pretty prominent in John Ford movies of this era, is sort of an emphasis on kind of like the building of America.
Sort of like building not just the civics, but like he's very interested in the mythology of the creation of America.
Right. But I mean, not just in terms of exciting stuff, but also in terms of like in exciting stuff like wars and battles, but also things that happened in town halls and courtrooms and things like that.
Right.
Woody Strode is in this film. Someone who I didn't recognize, but then I realized that I see him in tons of stuff all the time.
He's in Once Upon a Time in the West at the very beginning. He's one of the 3 trench-coated dudes that go to meet Charles Bronson.
Yeah, he's also in Vigilante. Do you remember him in Vigilante? In jail?
No.
He's the black guy who helps out Robert Forrester in jail, who saves him from being raped.
That's cool.
Yeah, so, he plays...
he's also in...
Pompey?
And he's also in Spartacus as well.
Right. Now he's in so many things. He never stopped, and he actually is probably the toughest guy, the actual tough guy on the set of the filming of The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, because he was a athlete, a fucking football player. Is that right?
I have no idea.
Well, he was. Yeah, he was an athlete who kind of graduated into acting, and was in all sorts of fucking movies. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see who he played for. UCLA, LA Rams, Calgary Stampeders. He played Canadian football too. Interesting. But he's a California native. Anyways, okay,
so he's part of that tradition of great athletes who go on to be in great films like O.J. Simpson.
Right, exactly. Wonderful American legends like the great, unblemished O.J. Simpson. So what the fuck? So what's the story? So it starts off and it's kind of, they do this thing where, Jimmy Stewart is in a little bit of an old age makeup. By the way, this is a black and white film, which I believe was shot that way due to budgetary limitations.
But also, it's interesting, you have to keep in mind, like, previous to this film, his movies like, you look at like The Searchers or My Darling Clementine. Big, huge, like, the landscape.
Monument Valley.
Landscape is a huge part of the movie. Here, it's like on a set. Like,
it's all sets.
It's all set, and you get this sense, and same thing, with Hitchcock, big, giant, North by Northwest, big landscapes. And he does Psycho, it's all on a set. And it's sort of like this movement of, like, it's almost like there's this competition now, because TV is now all the rage. And so these guys who were, making these big, giant movies suddenly are making these small movies on sets. I don't really know what that means. I mean, there is the budget aspect to it, but there's also this sense of like, if we're going to compete with television,
it's a paradigm shift. It's like, okay, instead of, movies have to be a little different now. We have to do, I mean, for example, the sheer fact that that this was shot in black and white is
that too is also like it's just like a TV show. It's shot in black and white. It's shot on a set.
Well, it's not. What I'm saying is not that that they're trying to make it more like TV. I'm trying to say that it's cheaper to shoot. Number one, it's cheaper to shoot on black and white than shooting in Technicolor, which is essentially shooting multiple times. Like, it's multiplying how much film you're using, because the way that works is by getting different values and then using sort of like an RGB system, right? So I mean, it's not orders of magnitude more expensive, but like multiple times more expensive than it is to shoot in black and white. And then also the sets thing, shooting on sets, obviously, like, it's much cheaper, much more practical, everything.
But also,
it looks like a penis with balls.
I thought it looked like an ass. Sorry, we're watching Stargate, unfortunately, while we're doing it.
It's just on after Species. Go on.
I mean, all these budgetary things you're bringing up, that's all fine. But I'm pretty sure, like, in both cases, in Hitchcock and in John Ford, like, this is, this in this period throughout the 60s, like, this is the only movie that they kind of did that. Everything after Psycho, Hitchcock just kind of went right back to, he did The Birds, which is a lot, bigger.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just kind of like, nobody's going to the movies and now we got to cut the budget. Like, it seemed like in both cases, there was a creative choice going on.
Yeah, but I don't think that they were trying to make it look more like TV. I don't think that was it.
I feel like there is an aspect of that. Like, I feel like there's Westerns on TV and he's trying to, and the popularity of TV, I feel like that had an impact on what he was doing.
Well, fine. As we move forward, we can talk about how this story is very much okay. So it's told from the perspective, like, it's told in the motif of like of this powerful senator telling a story about a guy because he's going to this unnamed state, this unnamed. Oh no, it's
No,
called Ribbone.
Shinbone,
right? Shinbone something, and they go to this fucking to this place because a friend has died. A fella named.
Well, he's as you said, he plays a senator. He shows up in town, and suddenly the people in the town are all abuzz. What's this guy doing here? The newspaper men come out, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing in town for?"
Senator, I am entitled to know what you're here for. He drew the dick and balls again.
It's just like,
That's fucking old Roland Emmerich. A hairy fucking glands.
So like, what are you doing in town? Oh, this guy, Tom Donovan died. Who the fuck is Tom Donovan? So it then becomes like, okay, who is this guy, and why does Senator Jimmy Stewart, who his name is Ransom Stoddard, why is Senator Ransom here to go to this fucking nobody's funeral in the middle of nowhere in Shinbone? Mm-hmm. And so that's when Jimmy Stewart is just kind of like, all right, everybody sit down. I'm going to tell you a tale of like why I'm here and why this guy is important.
And then all of a sudden the audience realizes why they're here too. Because to be honest, I was sitting watching this thing and my mind was kind of just like reeling with other stuff, and I found it difficult to like know what the hell I was supposed to be paying attention to. And then when that flashback happens, all of a sudden it's like, okay, now the movie's starting.
Because you get right into it, because he's sort of like, they're in this room and there's like this dilapidated stagecoach, and he's like, oh, this is the stagecoach I came in on. And then flashback.
Oh, it's the very same one.
Flashback to the stagecoach coming in, and then they're immediately hijacked by Lee Marvin and his pals.
Liberty Valance. Do you say Valance or Valance?
I've always heard Valance.
Yeah, so Liberty Valance and Lee Van Cleef and Strother Martin. Is Strother Martin someone that you know?
Strother Martin he's the guy in Cool Hand Luke who says, what we got here is a failure to communicate.
What we have here is a failure to communicate. So anyways, they hijack Jimmy Stewart and his woman. Do we ever see her again, or is it just...
That's just in that scene. So it's some old lady, they're about to take her brooch pin, and Jimmy Stewart kind of sasses back a little, and boy, does he really get it. Lee Marvin beats the fucking shit out of him.
With a whip.
With a whip that has like these silver metal bulbs on the...
No, the whip is a whip. The silver is the hilt of the whip.
Oh, okay. Well, still, he beats him with that hilt.
It really feels painful. They do a good... For a movie from 1962, the sound design is surprisingly good in relation to that whip.
I also want to say that Lee Marvin as Liberty Valance, great villain. He really is awful. Just like a really awful guy. I said that to you after the movie. I was saying that like there really is a great sense of like sort of drunken unreasonableness to him, where it's like you could explain to him whatever you want, but it wouldn't do anything. Yeah, he's like an animal.
He's all animal cunning. And regarding that lady, like what was their relationship, Jimmy Stewart and that lady's relationship?
They never really say. It's just some other.
Was she old?
Older. Oh. Not like an old hag, but she was definitely like an older lady, like probably a middle-aged lady.
Jimmy Stewart was just completely...
But I think she was just riding the coach with him.
Outraged by their lack of couth and just sort of what he thought is sort of basic human decency,
Right.
And they were just like, hey, well, this is the way we do things out here, outside of
as they're robbing the stagecoach, they find his suitcase, and it's just filled with books.
Well, look who we got here. Mr. fucking Bookie. Mr. fucking Library.
And they rip the books apart.
They just hate books. They hate knowledge. They hate learning. They hate school.
That stuff doesn't fly here in the Old West.
Nope. Mike's right. So anyways, like, Liberty Valance rides off with everything that he wants, everything that he wanted to take, he took. And Jimmy Stewart sort of like, he doesn't stumble into town. He ends up...
No, there's like a wagon that pulls him into town, and they take him to the Swede's place.
Yeah.
Where they kind of clean him up, and he sort of reveals who he is, and he's this attorney, and he wants to start a practice in Shinbone, but they took all his money, so he's kind of a little down and out. So
gotta wash some dishes.
So they say like, okay, well, you can stay here till you get back on your feet, and you can like help out in the kitchen and stuff. So they put an apron on him, and
Johnny loves that. Johnny loves that Jimmy Stewart is wearing an apron. It's the ultimate.
Well, it reminds me of that. Remember in Gran Torino where like the kid is like washing the dishes, and the
Do you have that apron?
and Clint Eastwood is like, dude, get the apron off. Let's go do some manly shit.
Mm.
So yeah, that's just like very, the symbolic sort of emasculation of Jimmy Stewart.
Right. The apron. Basically, an apron is the equivalent in John Ford's mind as like a French maid outfit.
Well, also like in Rebel Without a Cause, like when James Dean, his dad, is like trying to like tell his son like important shit, but he's wearing like an apron because he was just like cleaning up in the kitchen, and it's like this statement of like, yeah, of course James Dean's all fucked up. His dad's wearing an apron.
Yeah, it's fucking the ruination of America.
Exactly. Like, so like equating this equating like, doing these kind of very feminine jobs is bad for the male psyche.
Like cleaning,
like
maintaining one's environment. The kanji for wife in Japan is the symbol for woman and then the symbol for house combined. So it's like housewoman.
Yeah.
That's what a wife is, a housewoman. Woman for the house.
Okay. That sounds good.
That's just what the that's
no man house.
That's what we need. You need a housewoman. If you're a man in America, you need to follow the Japanese example, have a housewoman to take care of all the apron related toilings. So anyhow, so we meet Vera Miles as Hallie later to become Hallie Stoddard, spoiler. And she, what do we start with? Do we start with her not knowing how to read?
No, because that kind of comes a little later, because she's there and she's trying to like help clean Jimmy Stewart up when he shows up at the restaurant. But then we're also at that moment too. That's when John Wayne comes in. Tom, his character's Tom, and it's at that point it's kind of revealed that he's sweet on Hallie.
Yep.
And also we also meet the sheriff of the town, who is a goofy fat doofus, played by Andy Devine, who's fucking hilarious in this movie. Yeah. Everything he does is fucking hilarious.
Well, there's a part where he breaks a window with his ass, which is probably the peak funny part. And I don't think that was scripted. I think,
but also just like his constant, like he's enormous and he's always eating. He's always looking for a free meal. He's like Wimpy from the Popeye cartoons.
And the part where he's got kind of like a chalkboard where like the times that he hasn't paid, put it on my tab.
Yeah, he's got a tab that seems to be going on for quite a while.
Yeah. Okay, so like they patch up Jimmy Stewart, Hallie does, and because I guess she's just kind of like a nurse. Go get what does he say? Go find the doctor. If he's drunk, bring him back.
Right.
Well, go find the doctor. If he's drunk, bring him back.
But so it's this. So we're establishing like, okay, this is the Swedish family with Hallie. Like they own this restaurant. John Wayne's kind of like local cowboy, local tough guy. The sheriff is incompetent, and they basically, Liberty Valance and his crew, there's not a lot they can do about him. the sheriff is too
he's just
too scared.
He's incompetent.
He's too incompetent and cowardly to do anything about anything. So Jimmy Stewart is kind of like, next time I see that guy, actually John Wayne kind of is like, if you want to get Liberty Valance, you need a gun. And Jimmy Stewart is very much like, oh no, I'm not a man who needs a gun. All I need is the law.
I'm not trying to kill him. I'm trying to take him to jail.
Like, he's all about bringing civilization to this country.
That's what he says to the Liberty Valance when he gets hijacked. He's like, I'll see you in jail for this, and he's like, jail? This boys, you hear this fucking tenderfoot talk? He said, I'm going to put me in jail, and he has zero fear of that kind of thing.
Right. So Jimmy Stewart, no guns, doesn't want any guns. He's just like, I'm going to use the full power of the law. So going forward, he's now washing dishes at the restaurant, trying to get back on his feet so he can, start his law practice.
All right.
And he's like, as he's washing dishes, he's reading his law books, and he finds like some legal bullshit that says like, see, we can use this law to arrest Liberty Valance, and
it basically relates
put him in jail.
It relates to the extended jurisdiction of the marshal. And because before it's like, I don't have jurisdiction in those outer territories, but it turns out that he does under this circumstance. So we could go arrest him if we wanted to.
So when he finds this law, he's like, that's when he hands the book to Hallie. He's like, here, read this part of this law book. It's amazing. And that's right. When she's like, so what's wrong with you? Can't you read? And she's like, no.
I never learned to read.
And then everybody's like shocked and horrified. But Jimmy Stewart, he's a real nice guy. And he's like, look, I'll help you read. I can teach you.
Could you teach me to read, Mr. Stoddard? And he goes, why, sure I can. It's just as simple as pie. ABC. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, once that's sort of established, he's going to teach her and her mother how to read.
Oh, that's right.
Now comes maybe my favorite part of the whole movie, which is they got the restaurant going. It's hopping. It's crowded. John Wayne shows up for to get his steak, and he's sitting down there with the editor of the local Shinbone Gazette, played by Edmund O'Brien.
That's right. Dutton Peabody.
And also great. And so everybody's sitting around having their steak, and it's all nice and good, and it's real busy. So Jimmy Stewart has to help out with the food service, and and all of a sudden,
wouldn't you know it,
Liberty Valance waltzes into the restaurant with his goons. And he immediately is starting trouble, stealing people's food and just causing a little bit of mayhem. And
they turn around, and what do they see? Jimmy Stewart standing there, looking about as submissive as it's possible to look, wearing an apron, holding
John Wayne's steak.
Holding John Wayne's steak, exactly. And then, so what does he do? Well, he just goes ahead and does what he's supposed to do. Take that steak over to John Wayne. Liberty Valance puts out his foot and trips him like in a fucking high school cafeteria. And this guy falls all over the place, and everyone's laughing. And but then John Wayne, decides to step in, rightly so. That was my steak, Liberty.
But that's what's funny. Like, he's not defending the wimp Jimmy Stewart. He's pissed that his steak is on the floor.
Well, he's just using that as a way in, but I think that
that's still funny.
I think that it's what you call plausible deniability.
So yeah, there's this sort of showdown that happens between Liberty and then like one of his goons is going to go run over and pick up the steak, and John Wayne kicks him away and is like, no, not you. You are going to pick up that steak.
Right.
Jimmy Stewart, and of course, Jimmy Stewart, the
consummate pacifist.
he's just like, there's not going to be any, fighting in this civilized restaurant. Here's your steak. I picked it up.
Yeah. Well, here you go. Now the steak's picked up. So now you two fellas can cool down your thermostats. I just made up that line. But anyways,
but he tells, John Wayne tells Liberty Valance to get the fuck out, or else.
One of the guys, Strother Martin takes a bottle of whiskey with him when they leave. Liberty Valance snatches it out of his hand, throws it through the window, and then they just shoot up the town as they leave, like kind of yipping, hooting and hollering on their way out. And everybody in the restaurant has to hit the deck, very like, it's like, like middle school bully kind of mentality, but like with grown men and live ammo,
Yeah, great scene. So, I don't know what happens next.
Whoa! Well,
it's the end of the movie.
No. Then we, there's a problem. There's a big fucking problem with this Liberty Valance guy, And
yeah, sort of. So Jimmy Stewart now is like determined to stop Liberty Valance.
There's also an understanding of what scared him, because don't forget Pompey standing in the kitchen doorway holding the gun at him.
Right, there's that too.
And there's like just an understanding that Jimmy Stewart has at that moment, where he realizes that the only thing that Liberty Valance respects is the show of force or a gun, essentially.
Right.
And so that's been knocked into his head. He later gets a gun, kind of off screen. We find out later that he's got a gun and he's practicing.
Yeah, he's like secretly practicing.
But the thing too that kind of starts up at this time too is Jimmy Stewart starts up his little school. So now there's this scene where he's teaching all the kids, as well as Vera Miles, the alphabet, and teaching them how to read and stuff. So he kind of becomes this the town teacher, in addition to the town dishwasher and waitress.
I also like, from now on, Liberty Valance just refers to Jimmy Stewart as the waitress.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Does he call him a waitress?
At some point, he definitely calls him a waitress.
Oh, that's good. It's pretty funny. It is funny too how Lee Marvin's outfit in this movie is pretty funny. It looks like a little kid's fucking. It's like a little bolero.
Yeah, it's like a bolero hat and vest.
Yeah, but anyways, okay, I mean, so what are we talking about now? Are we talking about
so he's having this school, and Pompey's there in the school, and all the kids in town,
and they're learning about they're learning about the amendments, and this is where we get a little bit of like American civics kind of creeping into the story.
John Wayne busts in, and he's kind of like, Pompey, because Pompey actually works for John Wayne, and he's like, Pompey, what the fuck are you doing in this, wasting time in this school learning shit? You should be back home helping me like build the addition onto my hut.
I don't think he's too thrilled either that Jimmy Stewart is spending so much time with his woman.
Yeah, there is that too. Like he's definitely feeling like, he definitely notices, not only is Jimmy Stewart spending a lot of time with his woman, but he can sort of tell that Hallie has more of an interest in Jimmy Stewart and his sort of civilized ways, and even sort of teaching her how to read. Like he's getting closer to her. Mm-hmm. And every time we see John Wayne kind of talking to Hallie's kind of mad. And he always has that same response, which is like, you're really pretty when you're angry. Because you're
awful pretty when you're angry.
She's always angry when she's talking to him.
Yeah. So then, where are they when he why they're out by his house, right? But by John Wayne's house when the paint can thing happened.
Right. So when John Wayne hears that Jimmy Stewart's going to start practicing how to shoot,
does he invite him to come up there with him?
No, because it's like Jimmy Stewart has already left town to go practice shooting on his own, and John Wayne chases after him and heads him off, and he's like, "Come with me. I'm going to teach you how to shoot." And he just kind of drags him to his place, and that's when he shows him his house and how he's building this addition onto his house because he plans on marrying Hallie, and they're both going to live in this house.
And there is a little bit of there is like kind of a, that's my girl.
Yeah, he kind of basically tells Jimmy Stewart like, I'm going to marry Hallie. And Jimmy Stewart's like, well, everybody knows that. And he's like, well, I don't think you and Hallie know that, but that's what I'm telling you.
Well, he's basically, he can't tell Hallie that. He's like, he can't say, hey, you're marrying me, so he's telling, because it's like, hey, you're mine, you need to do what I say. So he just has to, the only recourse he has is just to like double down on Jimmy Stewart and say, I'm married. He's like, well, everyone knows that. That seems pretty self-evident to me. And then John Wayne, kind of dresses down Jimmy Stewart by telling him to put up some paint cans, and then he blasts the paint cans and covers Jimmy Stewart in paint.
But yeah, like as Jimmy Stewart is like putting the paint cans on the posts for John Wayne to shoot,
or to show him how to shoot.
John Wayne just starts shooting the paint cans and on either side of Jimmy Stewart, and then like the one right above him, he shoots that, and all the paint splashes down on Jimmy Stewart.
I think I took that as like, I got a lot of tricks, but Liberty Valance is even more. Like the idea of like, you gotta, it's sort of like the Karate Kid thing or whatever, where it's like, don't never lower your, or it's actually Ninja Turtles, where like, never lower your eyes to the enemy,
Okay.
Okay, you may think that everything's fine, but like you always have to keep your guard up for something. I think that maybe, thinly, or what do you call it, tucked in to just being a cruel sort of shitty bully.
Right.
I think John Wayne had maybe a little bit of a lesson to teach him.
The interesting thing about the Jimmy Stewart character too is that like even though he's very weak physically, he definitely has like a lot of pluck. He's very plucky. Like he definitely he doesn't back down from fighting. Like he's not afraid. He just doesn't have.
He knocks John Wayne on his ass in this scene.
Well, yeah, at this point he definitely, like after the paint can thing, he just like comes up to John Wayne and he punches him in the face. And I think that actually makes John Wayne kind of like him a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's not like a real sort of like classic kind of like Rick Moranis type wimp. He's got an angry streak in him, and he's definitely a little bit more plucky than that. Like he kind of like, he wants to fight Liberty Valance, but he's sort of like, he doesn't know what he's getting into. Mm-hmm. Like that's kind of like where he's at.
Yeah. So, I mean, are we talking like, then there's this whole thing that starts to kind of reveal itself about, this particular territory that Shinbone is in.
Well, there's an election that's about to happen within this county, or
and within under the, what hangs in the balance is whether or not they have whether this territory is regarded as a state, whether they have the
right. So one side
statehood.
There's one side that wants statehood, which basically means civilization. And then another side that does not want statehood, and that side is of like the cattle barons, cattle ranchers that just want their fucking cows, and basically they can do whatever they want without any kind of government regulation.
Right.
So it's these two factions, and I, not that it's like out and out like stated, but it seems that Liberty Valance and his goons are basically mercenaries.
It is actually stated, it's like a line.
But yeah, so they are sort of, and that also kind of like gives you a little bit more information of like, why can Liberty Valance just kind of get away with sort of doing whatever he wants? Like he can just kill people and then walk into the restaurant and have dinner, and he's
a bit of a Clarence Boddicker.
He's under the protection of
Dick Jones,
the Dick Jones cattle barons.
Yeah. So how much time do you want to spend on this election? This is the weakest part. This is the weakest stuff of the movie.
I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on it, other than the town basically wants Jimmy Stewart and Edmund O'Brien, who runs the paper, to be to run point on their side of making.
They want them to represent them
in the election, and to run point on the whole statehood thing. Edmund O'Brien, editor of the paper, he's basically the town drunk as well, and he's also writing a lot of articles, pro statehood and against Liberty Valance, and reporting on Liberty Valance's crimes, which Liberty Valance does not like, and he eventually beats the fucking living shit out of Edmund O'Brien
and destroys his his newspaper business or whatever, the office that they have there. Yeah, I mean, like, let's stay pretty, like, let's try to stay pretty close to the Liberty Valance versus James Stewart thing. But
I just want to set that up because it is like
it matters.
The fact that he does like almost kill Edmund O'Brien is sort of an important kind of trigger moment for
sure.
That's another great thing about this film is like everything in it has a purpose. Like every shot, everything you see, like everything leads up to something or has some kind of meaning in the story. Like all the attention to detail in the film is great.
Yep, that's something that is like it's if you spend your time like watching like modern movies and then you watch something like this and you care about story, you'll really see like the very, very like masterful sort of technical kind of how do you say that, like just all the pieces working together, this very fine-tuned machine in terms of the script of this film. It's pretty impressive, and then even the stuff that I'm over here about to start bellyaching about how like the election and then following, spoiler, the shooting of Liberty Valance. Well, I mean, I guess it's not a spoiler. The fucking movie's called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. But anyways, like there's this whole thing afterwards with John Carradine, who comes out and like this big thing of why should a man who shot Liberty Valance be go to represent us in Washington and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, and it seems like it seems like it's not as interesting, or after Liberty Valance is shot, the movie, the wind comes out of the sails of the movie a little bit, but like, maybe I do actually think that still, maybe it's not, maybe the movie becomes a little bit less interesting for me after Liberty Valance.
See, I think that but I think like it only becomes less interesting because you don't know what's coming next. And once it's sort of revealed that like, wait a minute, the guy you thought shot Liberty Valance didn't shoot Liberty Valance. So once that information suddenly becomes,
that's the real spoiler.
That becomes like, oh, that's why the movie doesn't stop after Liberty Valance is dead.
Well, it's also like this idea of the what James Stewart kind of like gains over that period of time, and like how everybody all of a sudden is like, he becomes like a hero kind of.
But also like during that whole sequence, because you can sort of like take the civics lesson moment and this sort of moment of the election moment, and kind of you could sort of say like, well, these aren't really very exciting, but they're sort of setting up.
They're not exciting. They're good scenes, and there's stuff going on and it's interesting.
They're setting up like what's about to come. So with the election scene, like setting up like all these people, the cattle baron people versus the people that want statehood, and Jimmy Stewart is very reluctant to like, I don't want, he doesn't feel good about killing Liberty Valance. He doesn't feel good about representing these people, and
why they like him. Like, you know what I mean? Like why they think they don't think he's good because they don't think he's good for any other reason than he's the guy who killed a guy.
Right.
But then sort of, yeah, I mean, you know, you're right.
So then, like, when John Wayne steps into the building and he's there watching the election going down, and Jimmy Stewart kind of like runs out of the room all upset.
I can't take it anymore.
and he's John Wayne kind of like closes the door and he's like, look, idiot, you didn't really think you killed Liberty Valance. I killed Liberty Valance.
Mm-hmm.
And then they show, you know, flashback of how John Wayne kind of was off to the side.
Yeah, standing right there.
And he blows fucking Liberty Valance's brains out with a rifle.
Well, shoots him in the chest with a fucking a lever action
and
Winchester.
And so we see that, like, yeah, he actually killed him.
All of a sudden, this kind of absolves Rance Stoddard of maybe the guilt that he feels.
It does two things, like, because he's still taking. Yeah, he's still taking the responsibility. Like, I did this, and this is what it takes to elevate me to this leadership role. But it is absolving me of the guilt of having had killed. Like, I didn't kill this guy. You know, this other guy did. Also,
well, was there another one, or was that both of them?
That was both of the ones I was thinking of.
One of the things that it also does too is this is the reason why he tells him this is because this is him also letting go of Hallie. This is him saying, like, I want you to succeed because I think you can give her the life she wants, and you know, and she.
Well, on that point, we should also say, like, after Liberty Valance dies or is killed, there's a great scene of John Wayne. He's not like happy that he killed Liberty Valance. He's irritated. He's very angry, probably for several reasons. He's very, very conflicted about stuff. On the one hand, you know, now that Jimmy Stewart has, you know, he's the guy who is getting praised for killing Liberty Valance. He's the hero of the town. He's getting all the accolades. He's also getting the, I don't know if you'd say love of Hallie. Like, Hallie definitely is.
Well, she's saying, like, oh, this, like, you know, I liked this guy before because he was kind of a brainy bookworm guy, and he and he was sophisticated, and he knew how to fucking, you know, he knew which side of the plate the fork went on and all that shit.
Right.
And then, but now also he's showing me that he can
protect me and the town.
He's got a hard dick and he can do man stuff.
And so, and John Wayne, sort of knowing all this, very, very upset. Maybe he's even regretful of what he just did. And he goes he goes to the bar. He's angry. He gets drunk. That's when Andy Devine's ass goes through the plate glass door. Just like throwing shit around. It's pretty funny. And then going back to his house and realizing that his dream of being with Hallie is gone, and he burns his house down.
Yeah, he throws an oil lamp into the addition that Pompey was helping him make.
But there's also this idea that, like, you know, Jimmy Stewart is the new wave. Like, this is the new man that's coming. You know, the evolution.
This is the new kind of man that's going to be taking the reins.
John Wayne's the dinosaur who's dying out. Like, the real man he's gone. This is the last real man. And yeah, he's vanishing off the planet.
What's the remember? Okay, this is going way back. Maybe you know the reason why this is, but why did Liberty back in the scene where the stagecoach is hijacked, right? You know, right at the beginning of the flashback, which is the meat of the movie. Mm-hmm. Why did Liberty Valance ask for the leads of the two horses on the carriage to be cut? He says, cut the leaders. Why did he do that? Do you know what that is?
No.
Me neither. Okay, well, keep going.
Maybe there had something to do with like taking the horses later at some later point, or
maybe I need to ask ChatGPT about why they would cut the leaders. But anyways, let's go back to.
I mean, it would make the stagecoach slower in some way, or slowing them down, or
I don't know. I'm not satisfied with any of these answers. I'll figure it out later. But anyways, so then there's this scene where then all of a sudden the great John Carradine. By the way, John Carradine, the father of fucking David Carradine,
Keith Carradine, and Robert Carradine,
and hold on, the Revenge of the Nerds guy, is that Keith Carradine?
That's
David Carradine.
David Carradine, and Keith Carradine is the guy from Thieves Like Us and Robert Altman movies and stuff.
It's just very funny. I had no idea that David Carradine and I'm getting all fucked up here.
David, Keith, and
Robert. So hold on, which one's Robert? Robert Carradine.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Robert Carradine is Revenge of the Nerds. David Carradine is Kung Fu, and Keith Carradine is motherfucking
Thieves Like Us.
Nashville. Wow, they really look completely different from each other. Anyways.
Although, David probably looks the most like his dad.
Sure, agreed. John Carradine plays fucking Rickshaw Cassius Starbuckle, a real fucking loudmouth.
Great names in this movie too.
Starbuckle, Cassius Starbuckle.
Like the Andy Devine's name is like Appleworthy or something.
Appleyard.
Link
Appleyard.
And then like the guy running the funeral parlor, his name, he had like a wacky name too.
The funeral parlor?
Oh, well, like at the very beginning when they go see the coffin, and he's the guy that steals the boots off of John Wayne. Mm. He's got like a shingle on his door. It has his name on it, but I'm blanking on the name. But it was also kind of a funny name.
I can't find which one it is here. But anyways, John Carradine has a gag that made everyone in the theater laugh, where he's like, I was going to read from this piece of paper. He opens his mouth super crazy wide when he talks, this guy. And he's like, I was going to read from this piece of paper, from this speech, but I figured that it would be better for me to read from the heart instead. And he crumples up the piece of paper and throws it on the ground. And then someone, I think it might actually even be Edmund O'Brien, who picks up the piece of paper and uncrumples it and sees that the piece of paper is blank. And so I made everybody in the theater kind of titter and chuckle over that. He goes and, what are they talking about? They're talking about just how...
that might be the one moment people were like, I felt like I was laughing through the whole movie.
I mean...
like by myself.
No, you absolutely were not. Although you were, like... the only part that I was really laughing at was when... It was just it's pretty boneheaded. Like, it's just that shot of when Jimmy Stewart comes out of the fucking kitchen holding the...
Oh, that was amazing.
Like, not only is he wearing an apron and holding that
so
tray,
pathetic.
But also just sort of the weird sort of like prone sort of weird position that he was in. Like, it was just very effeminate and it's really shot from the perspective, not overtly characterized as the POV of Liberty Valance, but like from his perspective, like even shot from the angle of someone seated at a table. So it's very funny, just the idea of Liberty Valance turning around and just seeing that and just being like, oh my God, And then there was that I laughed at, and I also laughed appreciatively when Jimmy Stewart punched John Wayne. I chuckled at that, mostly because I was like, fuck this John Wayne guy, this guy's fucking, talking a whole lot. And
he's funny though.
Yeah, he is funny. He is very likable. John Wayne's always likable, as much as you kind of, even if you're the kind of person who maybe, I don't know, wouldn't immediately kind of I don't know, like that kind of character. Like he's very charismatic.
When I was younger, I sort of thought that he was, this very stereotypical cartoon character. And he didn't really interest me all that much.
I guess that's kind of what I mean. Like it's boring in the way that Superman's boring.
Right. But as I've gotten older and watching more of his films, I definitely have been able to get more into it. I think he's
got good lines. He's quite funny throughout the whole thing.
I think he's very, he can be very appealing.
Yeah, I mean, on the other hand, like Jimmy Stewart,
I've grown to appreciate him a lot more.
Jimmy Stewart doesn't really have any funny lines in this film.
But he's supposed to be like a real stiff. So
yeah. I'm just saying that, like, you know, the funny lines, pretty much the kind of the cool funny lines, all are the domain of John Wayne, and then sort of the, you know, you got Andy Devine and
well, I mean, definitely the other characters, like, you know, Edmund O'Brien is funny. You know, when he's like during the election, when he's just like begging, sweating, trying to get a drink.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that, like, they're funny. They're funny at the expense of themselves,
right?
Whereas John Wayne is never funny at the expense of himself. There's no self-deprecation, cool. Right? He's a cool dude, and again, very funny how he was a draft dodger. I like that. But anyways, yeah. I mean, what else is there to say? The film ends with the film ends by tying the opening sequence.
Yeah, so it's like the movie's bookended by the Jimmy Stewart, you know, telling the story from, you know, years later when he, you know, was returning to town
next to the bury, casket of Tom Donovan.
Yeah, to bury John Wayne. So yeah, at the end we go back to the present time, and the reporter who was listening to the whole story takes his notepad and throws it in the fire, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to print your fucking stuff.
This story is far too sacred. It's too meaningful."
And then the famous line, "Print the legend."
Yeah. Oh, that's right. What exactly is the line? Is that it, or is there a little bit of something before that?
I can't remember.
When faced between the legend and fact of the something.
Always print the legend is the.
But it's prefaced in some way. It doesn't matter. We'll figure it out. Write it in the comments, somebody. Has anyone even seen this movie? If you haven't seen the movie, I know you're going to see the thumbnail first of all, but you should probably watch this before. You should probably do that for every single episode of this fucking podcast.
Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you listen to this podcast if you haven't seen the movie?
Because when people watch a podcast, when people listen to podcasts or watch podcasts, they're just putting on something while they fucking
right. But I still would not want to, you know, listen to somebody spoiling a movie for me while I'm driving.
You would be very surprised as to why people watch podcasts.
But I mean, you know, if you're okay with being the story being spoiled, you know, go for it. Listen.
Yeah, but
who am I to say?
But in this case, this is something that you kind of have to go out of your way. Like, it's kind of like going to the gym. Like whenever you go to the gym, you're always, when you're finished, you're always happy that you did it. But sometimes it's very difficult to like get the fortitude to actually go and step out of your house and go to the gym. You have to kind of make an effort to do it. And with something like this, like a black and white movie from 1962, you know, you're like, oh man, like, I mean, there's so many other things I could be watching. I could be watching some fucking shit like Severance.
Precious
or I mean, no, you wouldn't be watching Precious. You'd be watching something that's just readily available. Like, you could be watching fucking White Lotus or some bullshit, right? Yeah. But
look, just because something's in black and white, it doesn't mean that it's bad.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But
it's definitely, you know, there's plenty of black and white shit that is fucking.
You'd be surprised though. You'd be surprised to our younger viewers out there. You'd be surprised at how quickly you can get swept up in something that has an appropriately good script. Like if you've never seen something like Sunset Boulevard or something, you'd be like, Sunset Boulevard? What the fuck? I ain't trying to watch that.
But I feel like I think if you're listening to this podcast, you like film, you appreciate film. I'm sure everybody has their favorite eras of film, but you still have to appreciate films from other other eras, especially if they're great films, stuff from the 30s and 40s, 50s.
What I'm trying to say though is that like if you just go to the trouble of like getting it and putting it on, in the example of something like Sunset Boulevard, that movie will get you hooked in probably about 5 minutes. Like that, I think that movie is well written and kind of compelling and well acted enough to kind of get you hooked into it. And then it's just like, then let yourself get carried away. I find this film, when the flashback happens, you're all in. Like you're stuck kind of watching this film in a good way. Like it'll carry you along. You're hooked. But not everything's like that, There's plenty of fucking shitty movies of all eras, Like there's a ton of black and white movies. To the the thing that you were saying before about black and white movies, John Ford famously said, and you can see this in the fucking Wikipedia regarding black and white, because don't forget, this was like a decision was made to shoot this in black and white because color was actually the norm at this time doing Technicolor. In black and white, you got to be very careful. You got to know your job, lay down your shadows in properly. Lay your shadows in properly. Get your perspective right, but in color, there it is, he said. You might say I'm old-fashioned, but black and white is real photography. Ford also reportedly argued that the cinematic shootout between Valance and Stoddard would not have worked in color. And when I think back on it, I think that I agree with that, because so much of it has to do with like these sort of black bars of shadow that are obscuring our characters.
Well, I mean, there's that great moment where
he comes into the light.
Yeah, he's like, step out of the shadow, come closer. But I also think that the fact that he was working on a set that shot in black and white. I feel like if that was shot in color, it would feel more like you were on a set than if it is in black and white.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, but you can definitely control the light more on a set, and you can kind of, I mean, color really is that. Now that I think about it, like color really is trying to create movies that are more real, that feel more like real, and taking advantage of real locations. Whereas black and white and shooting on sets go hand in hand, because it's really more of a what is it? It's more of a fucking exercise in maybe something more close to like theater or something. And you're I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say here. Color is trying to create an immersive experience that relates more closely to reality. Whereas maybe black and white is something that's maybe between that and theater, maybe. I'm not sure. What the fuck do I know? Anyways, let's fucking end this episode.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody. And go see...
5 eggplants.
Oh, right. For me, I say 4.5. It loses a 0.5 because I feel like there's some moments in it that lose me a little bit. And I feel not... I don't know. There's just moments where I feel like I want this to be over, like I'm like get back to the good stuff. I feel like that sometimes during this movie, but those little pockets in and of themselves, I believe, are interesting. They just kind of are like side quests. But this is like one of the best movies that we've covered for sure. John Ford is. People aren't like believe the hype. People are fucking. People are telling the fucking truth when they say that he's like a master. He certainly is. So that's it.
Go watch My Darling Clementine, Searchers. She wore a yellow ribbon. John Wayne's also really good in The Quiet Man. If you like Irish people, lots of good stuff.
The Cowboys. You ever seen The Cowboys?
I don't know.
That was recommended to me by Garth Ennis, actually. He said The Cowboys was his favorite John Ford.
Wagon Master, Escape from Devil's Island is fucking great. That's like a really early one. 3 Godfathers. I think there's 2 versions of that. They're both great.
All right. Yeah, great. Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a good night. Bye bye.